He taught us this concept called the power of the leapfrog theory, right? And this is something that everybody gets wrong when they're ever trying to accomplish any goal. They do the same thing, and they do what's called sequential thinking and sequential goal achievement. And that's accurate when you're doing like a focus exercise and you have your sequences, right? I get that. That's one thing. But what I'm talking about is something different. Sequential thinking is that you went to kindergarten, you went to first grade, you went to second grade, you went to third grade, you went to fourth grade. And what does it go on? You could follow the whole trail all the way up, right? It goes fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, 10th grade, 11th, 12th, right? We graduate up those ladders. And that is just a sequential way of thinking. That's how it's always, with how we've been indoctrinated to think, right? But the problem is in business and in life, like in business, even like in sports, I have a few other analogies there I could talk about coaching, but I'll do that on a different video, a different time. But one thing you got to realize is that all the competitors, everybody, like this is where it's crowded, guys. This is where it gets a little less crowded up here. But at the top, in every single industry that I've ever been in, this is where the least amount of competition is, at the highest parts of the ladder. And so mentally, mentally, we want to get our mindset right. And we do what Robert Ringer calls the leapfrog theory of success. It's called leapfrog theory of success. I'm going to get better at my markers here, guys. Sorry about that. I think this might be it. What about this? That's thicker. Yeah, it's much thicker. Sorry about that. Anyhow, leapfrog theory of success. The leapfrog theory of success states, hey, look, no one, you have no moral obligation to work your way through the ranks. This is a no-go. You have no moral obligation to work your way through the ranks. At any given point, at any given time, you can decide and declare to jump straight to the top, right? Go right to the top and be in the top of the space. Every successful person I've ever been around, they just naturally either figured this out at some point or that's what they do. And sometimes, as we talked about earlier, it comes down from the belief, comes all the way up to here, and you got to borrow belief. That's why you got to have a mentor and a model. You're borrowing belief from them. You got to have your tribe. So when everything hits the fan, you have people around you. And then you absolutely have to have a model that you're following. Otherwise, you're making it up. Okay. If I said, the dog ate my homework, right? The dog ate my homework. But if I said the homework ate the dog, it doesn't make any sense. It's the same content, different structure. Without a model, without the plan, you're never going to be able to have the outcome that you truly deserve. And if you really have people that you really want to do it for, you got to do it the right way. Okay. So I have a few moments. I see we have a couple of people on the training. If you have a question, you could either unmute yourself. I'm happy to answer a question. Otherwise, I'm going to share a little bonus training that I'm going to give away as a free gift for anybody who decides to move forward with Nate's event or challenge coming up really quickly. Okay. So I ran an event. So I'm going to open up to questions just a moment for any questions. I ran an event that right here where I had Jesse Itzler, I had Roland Frazier, I had my buddy Vinny Fisher, Jeff Usner, and then I had I went so deep into the art of time collapsing. Okay. People paid anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000 to be in the room for that. It's pretty incredible. And if you decide that you'd like to jump in and be a part of Nate's challenge, so if you go to natekennedy.com/challenge, I'll go ahead and gift you this entire training. Okay. It's 2 days. 2 days. A lot of great people were there. Like I said, some people paid $3,000. Some people paid $5,000 to be in the room. And that'll be my gift to incentivize you to take the next steps if this is what you really want to do. Okay. If this is what you want to do. And it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you don't. But here's the one thing I just really want to encourage you. If you're saying you want to do the business, but you're not willing to do this process, and you're not willing to leap to the top, you got to rearrange your thought process. Okay. Because what I've found too is as people get older, their ability to make good decisions actually becomes weaker. Okay. And the reason that this is a little bit of subjective, but what I've figured out is so many of them are spending too much time trying things haphazardly rather than being all in on things. Okay. And now, again, it doesn't make you a bad person, right? It just makes you a bad executor of a proven process. And when you're executing on a whim here and there, the outcome is you end up failing more than you're supposed to. Okay. Does failure lead to success? Yeah. And unless of course you keep doing what you did before, which is insanity. And that does not lead to success. That actually leads to more lack of self-belief. And look, at the end of the day, if you have a model, a mentor, and you have a tribe, and you have proven you're taking other people's assets and you're implementing them, it's the fastest way to do things now. Now, we didn't talk about other people's audiences. We didn't talk about other people's databases in different ways to do swaps and to grow your business. But actually, I'm going to talk about one thing for a second. I'm going to just make sure, just give me 1 second. I got to make sure I don't lose my power here. Thanks for being patient with me today, guys. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. You're going to check out this. Within a week, you're going to come back to Ed's studio on one of my live feeds or something like that, or one of the next trainings. I'm going to challenge you. See, this will be better. I'll have this locked in. My snooze alarm on my computer over here, I haven't been able to fix it. And I don't know why. I'll fix it after this thing today. All right, let's cover another thing here. Okay. Has this been worth it for you? Even if you didn't make it and you're watching the recording, just say yes out loud. I'm a big believer in people. Like I've seen people, I was telling a lady last night, I'm like, I really believe that like humans have an unlimited capacity to handle and endure. And we get to ask questions all the time. My wife and I, we had a daughter who was sick for about 3 years, and then we still have 6 other kids, and we're doing the best we can. And one of the questions we get a lot is, how do you guys do it all? And I think that's one of those questions where that people ask, but the reality is that there's nothing that we have that you don't already have. And God willing, through his grace and mercy, we've been gifted our abilities to have these blessings. Okay. But I also think I just want to share this with you on top of that. And I want to share with you that there's nothing that you can't accomplish and that you don't have the capacity to solve. And there's nothing that you don't have the capacity to endure with. Okay. Sometimes the capacity is built up through the struggle. And even if it's good struggle, there's good struggle, like in practice, when we're training stress, I'm purposely trying to create stress so that they grow faster, they learn faster. Because if you take somebody who's never learned anything or never been in an environment where there's stress and there's chaos and there's frustration and overwhelm in a competitive environment when you're coaching, and then you all of a sudden throw them into a match, they're going to fail. Nothing that you teach them is going to transfer over because you've only trained in a emotional state that is not transferable over to the team. And so that's why when you follow like your mentors and your models, you can follow them at a faster clip because you're borrowing their belief system, but you're also borrowing their emotional tenacity with when things go sideways. Oh, I'm going to say that again. You're borrowing their belief systems that the system's going to work, but you're also borrowing their emotional tenacity and endurance to handle some of the chaos that on your own would be overwhelming and destructive and paralyzing as an entrepreneur. But with a mentor or model, it's freeing because you're going straight to them, right? I was watching an interesting AI ChatGPT training, and the guy, Adam, did a great job. As he said, anytime you don't know the answer to the question, just ask AI what the answer is. And I was like, wow, it's like a mentor. Like you just go and be like, hey, what am I supposed to do in this situation? And the mentor has already been there. Okay. And a lot of times the mentor is the model, but some models are not good mentors. Okay. So we're aware of that. We find that in coaching, right? I promised one thing, which was, would you like to know how to double your income in half the amount of time? Okay. Now, so years ago, I went to a Perry Marshall seminar where he brought in a guy called Richard Koch. Now, Richard Koch was the author of the first 80-20 rule book. And then Perry Marshall was the author of the book of 80-20 for marketing and advertising. Phenomenal book, both great guys, both amazing. But if you spend a little bit of time thinking about this concept, is like the whole idea of Pareto, right? Pareto principle is very simple, right? It's that 80% of all your results, and I spelled that backwards, bear with me, is always directly correlated to 20% of your inputs. And what that really means for you and I is 20% of the actions that we're actually taking. And if you got to go get the book 80-20, you can get them both. I recommend both, by Perry and by Richard Koch. They're both different, but Richard Koch has a more global way of looking at 80-20, the Pareto principle across many different things. And Perry Marshall has a very direct correlated way of looking at it for businesses. Okay. And so what I really appreciate about that is when you start looking at all the different areas of your life and you start looking at the results that you're having, 80% of the revenue that you're generating is going to come from 20% of the customers and 20% of the leads. And then your top 20% of those customers are going to generate probably 4 times the amount of money than your other customers. And it just goes on and on. Now, the struggle that I've always faced, totally on me, is that the inputs, the outputs, is that I get caught up in this 80% of activities that produce 20% of the result. Now, here's what's crazy about this. I would be willing to bet that if you did a day of consulting or came to a workshop and we just did this kind of concepts, right? I'd be willing to bet that every headache, every crappy client, everything that's limiting you, everything that you'd like to avoid, everything that you'd like to get rid of is found, got to use red for that, is found within this ecosystem. It just is. A really good example. I'm going to tell you a story here. This is probably the last story of the day, and then I got to get going. But I had a client comes to me and goes, hey, look, his name's Jeff Hampton. Awesome guy. Jeff's great. You can see I did an interview on the show with him, and he did a interview with me, but he runs a law firm because he's a lawyer for short-term rental investors and other investors as well, high-income professionals. And he's an asset protection attorney who, what do you call it? He makes sure that people don't lose everything because somebody gets hurt at their rental home and then they get sued. And what he's found is that by being a luxury short-term rental owner himself, he joined what? He joined masterminds. He got in a coaching club. He got mentors. He got models. And what do you think happened? Guess what happened? He started learning a lot, right? What also happened was he was in a room with a bunch of other people, his tribe group. Sorry, guys, 1 second. My lovely daughter's in the front door. 1 second. Anyhow, he did exactly what I talked about, right? But he's in a new tribe, right? And what did he figure out in the new tribe? He figured out that nobody knew what they were talking about when it came to asset protection. So they went to, hey, Jeff, how are you protecting all your assets? And these are smart people, by the way. These aren't dumb people. These are successful investors, high income earners. This isn't one of those things where he's talking to people that are brand newbies and stuff. And so anyhow, so Jeff found that out and he's, oh my gosh. So what he did is he started, I keep dropping my pen. He figured out that look, man, none of these guys know what they're talking about. Not in a negative way. They just need help. So he built out a whole business in the short-term rental space, right? So Jeff comes to my house. All right, here's Jeff, right? Let's see, we should get a video of Jeff. Jeff's a good guy, man. Jeff Hampton. He comes to my house, right? And we're sitting there and we do an interview, we do a day of consulting. And I break every client I ever worked with. I'm always like, who are your best clients? Who are we talking to? We want to know, who are we talking to? So number one thing that we ever do, like my Offer Wingman program, Offer Wingman service, any business you ever go into, I always build it from your best client first all the way down, right? It's a leapfrog theory concept, but the fact of the matter is the reason you do that is because the best clients are going to pay for the rest of your growth of your business. Okay? Write that down. Your best clients, just like if you do the $1 million newsletter business, your best advertisers are going to be the first people you go after, not the last, because they're going to be the ones who end up funding the rest of your business. Does that make sense? And then same thing here. If you're selling high ticket coaching, if you're selling high ticket dental implants, we help doctors all the time with their high-end services. You don't start at the bottom. You go right to the people with the money that can afford that. Does that make sense? And so what we've always found is those people are the most enjoyable people. What Jeff and I spoke about was some of his most enjoyable people are people that already have 3 to 5 rental units. They're committed to growing their portfolio. Now, why would that be? Because people that are committed to growing their portfolio, they're not just testing out with one rental, like a small rental, so that when Jeff proposes like his asset protection package, he wants to be dealing with people that got hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of property to cover. And even better is if they're a doctor who have other assets that are very valuable that they really got to make sure they don't lose, okay? Because of one slip and fall. He's got amazing stories. You should also check out his YouTube channel just check out Jeff Hampton if any of that interests you. Please let him know I sent you, right? Anyhow, but one of the hardest things for him to digest was he had built a business that was intaking inputs, activities. You sometimes build up this success that has 80% of your activities, but they're only getting 20% of your profit or your income or your results. Yet you've committed to these 80% of activities. And it will wrap this up with a Brian Tracy question, which is, if you were starting today knowing what you know now, and you had no limitations, no money limitations, no geographical, there's no limitations, what would you do differently? And I'll tell you, going after the top 20% to get all the 80% is 1,000 times more enjoyable than adding the extra 80% to add in a little bit of extra 20%, right? And so one of the things that we're working through right now, even with, if you look at like Monday through Friday, and you look at the 3-hour day, which I have not mastered yet. I know Nate plans on talking about it in his training, but I haven't mastered it yet, right? But it's what would need to happen in your life for you to be able to take your most important things that you accomplish for your clients, your customers, and patients, to allow you and your team to allow you to literally work just a 3-hour day. Like, what would have to happen in that window? And if you said, look, I'm going to take 1 week experiment and I'm only working 3 hours a day, how planned, I guess I'll give you a little extra time, maybe like 20 minutes, 30 minutes to plan. Okay. So your 3 hours is a sprint where I got to condense all this quality stuff in just 3 hours. Now, one of the dentists that I worked with runs a really successful coaching club. And one of his clients was talking about how they would have a goal every day by noon, every day. They were already at $12,000 a day in production. That's going to be a very successful dental practice. Even if they don't hit the $12,000 every single day, that focus is going to get them so much further ahead than by not having that focus. Anyhow, it's been great having you here today. So if you like this, obviously subscribe at our YouTube channel at O'Keefe Show.